Stand in a quiet residential street in Utrecht or a canal-side cafe in Amsterdam, and the world feels perfectly balanced. This is the image the Netherlands exported for decades, a high-trust, low-crime society that functioned with the precision of a Swiss watch. It was a Nordic-style safe haven where the greatest security concern for most citizens was a stolen bicycle. The Dutch model was built on the idea that social problems could be engineered away with pragmatism, wealth, and consensus. But while the world was looking at the surface, a different machine was being built in the shadows. On July 6, 2021, that image was shattered in the heart of Amsterdam. Peter R. de Vries, the nation's most prominent investigative journalist, was shot in the head while walking to his car after a television appearance. It didn't happen in a dark alley. It happened in broad daylight, in a city filled with tourists and cameras. This wasn't just a murder, it was a message. It signaled that the rules of the game had changed. The Netherlands was no longer just a transit point for global commerce, it had become the logistical heart of the European drug trade. The safe haven had become a narco-state. To understand how this happened, we have to look past the violence and examine the variables of geography, logistics, and a misplaced sense of cultural invincibility. The transformation of the Netherlands into Europe's crime capital is, first and foremost, a story of infrastructure. The port of Rotterdam is a marvel of human engineering, the largest port in Europe, handling over 14 million containers every year. It is the main port of the continent, a logistical miracle that allows goods to move from South America to Berlin or Warsaw in a matter of days. But the very efficiency that makes the Dutch economy a powerhouse also makes it the perfect Trojan horse for illicit cargo. In 2026, the volume of cocaine passing through these docks has reached industrial proportions. We are no longer talking about kilos hidden in suitcases. We are talking about tons hidden in shipments of bananas, pineapples, and scrap metal. The state's ability to monitor this flow has hit its structural limit. Only about 1% of the containers passing through Rotterdam are ever thoroughly scanned. For organized crime, those are the best odds in the world. The fruit logistics sector has become a primary target. Criminal organizations utilize the rip-off method. Using corrupt port officials and low-level extractors, often teenagers from marginalized neighborhoods, paid a few €100 to pull the drugs out before they reach the scanner. These extractors sometimes hide for days in hot containers just to wait for the right moment. The port is so vast and the turnover so fast that it has become a black box where the state has lost its monopoly on oversight. The machine of global trade has simply outpaced the machine of national security. This didn't happen overnight. The path to becoming a narco-state began in the 1970s and 80s with the Dutch policy of gedoogbeleid, principled pragmatism. By tolerating the sale of soft drugs like cannabis in coffee shops, the Netherlands inadvertently built the infrastructure for a massive illegal supply chain. Since growing cannabis remained illegal while selling it was tolerated, a criminal backdoor was created. This backdoor required smugglers, safe houses, and money launderers. For decades, the Dutch state turned a blind eye to this backdoor, assuming it was a manageable side effect of a progressive policy. By the 1990s, Dutch criminal groups pivoted to the production of synthetic drugs. The Netherlands became the world's leading producer of MDMA and ecstasy. The country possessed the perfect combination of factors: a highly developed chemical industry, a world-class transport network, and a legal system that treated drug crimes with relative leniency compared to its neighbors. The expertise gained in the production and global distribution of synthetic drugs laid the foundation for the cocaine boom. The networks were already there. The routes were established. The corruption was already seeded. When South American cartels looked for a gateway into a wealthier, growing European market, they didn't see a safe haven. They saw a high-speed logistical highway with a soft security culture. In the shadows of this logistical giant, a new breed of criminal emerged. What the media calls the Mocro Maffia is primarily composed of second- and third-generation immigrants who felt disconnected from the Dutch we. These were groups that didn't just want a piece of the pie, they wanted to run the bakery. Leading the shift was Ridouan Taghi, a man who functioned less like a traditional mob boss and more like a CEO of a shadow corporation. Taghi and his associates understood that in the modern world, power belongs to whoever controls the logistics. They built a network that stretched from the production labs of Colombia to the ports of Antwerp and Rotterdam, with a command center located in the tax-free zones of Dubai. This was crime as a service. They outsourced hits to young, desperate recruits, laundered money through complex international shells, and used encrypted communication systems like EncroChat and Sky ECC to stay years ahead of the police. For a long time, the Dutch state treated them as a local police problem, a series of street feuds. They didn't realize they were facing a transnational paramilitary organization with more liquid capital than some small European departments. By the time the state realized the scale, Taghi had already become the shadow CEO of Europe's drug supply. The true brutality of this system was revealed in 2020, in a discovery that horrified even seasoned investigators. In a small village called Wouwse, Plantage, Dutch police discovered 7 sea containers that had been converted into a high-tech prison. One container, lined with soundproofing and heat-insulating foil, was equipped with a dental chair, handcuffs, and a collection of surgical tools, scalpels, pliers, and saws. This was the Wouwse Plantage discovery, made possible only by the hacking of the EncroChat server. The messages exchanged between the criminals revealed a level of clinical, industrial cruelty that the Netherlands had never seen. They discussed chopping people up and extracting information, as if they were talking about a business merger. It proved that the Dutch underworld had moved past simple smuggling. They were now operating with a level of internal discipline and violence that mirrored the most brutal cartels in Mexico. The discovery destroyed the myth that Dutch crime was Polder-style, civilized, and non-violent. It was a cold, industrial-scale operation where human life was just another variable in the cost of doing business. The state realized that in certain parts of the country, its authority had been completely replaced by the rules of the shadow state. The danger of a narco-state isn't just the bodies in the streets, it's the corruption of the system itself. In 2026, the billions of euros generated by the drug trade have seeped into every corner of the Dutch economy. This is the shadow economy. The money isn't kept in suitcases. It is laundered through high-end real estate in Amsterdam and Utrecht, luxury watch shops, car dealerships, and flower export businesses. When so much illicit capital enters a legitimate market, it creates a systemic rot. It inflates property prices, making housing unaffordable for the average citizen. It creates a class of legitimate businessmen who owe their loyalty to criminal syndicates. The Dutch state is now facing a structural crisis. How do you extract billions of euros from the economy without causing a crash? How do you prosecute a criminal network that can afford the best lawyers, the best tech, and has the ability to threaten any judge, prosecutor, or politician? The Marengo trial, the largest in Dutch history, was an attempt to strike back. But for every CEO, like Taghi, that is arrested, the logistics remain. The machine is self-healing. The Netherlands didn't become Europe's crime capital because it was weak. It became the crime capital because it was efficient. It was a high-trust society that built a world-class logistical machine and then forgot to protect the gates. It assumed that its values were so strong that the corruption of global crime couldn't touch it. As we look at 2026, the haven is gone. The Netherlands is now forced to become a high-security state. Judges and prosecutors live under 2-4-hour protection. The army is called upon to assist in port security. The pretending has stopped. The machine of the shadow state is now as much a part of the Netherlands as the canals and the windmills. The lesson for the rest of Europe is clear. When you become the world's gateway, you also become its primary target. The safe haven is a relic of the past. The logistical war is the reality of the present. The gates are closing, but for the Netherlands, the change is already permanent.